planning meeting. I think this is the first one, and in a route through the regional transport plan now.
No, well, you've had a transport subcommittee previously, which the minutes are attached. So this is the second.
Right. Sorry. I think what I meant was this is putting us on our journey. This is setting us up for our journey.
Indeed.
So it's an important meeting because this is part of where we want to go. So I just wanted to make that point, really. We've got the next one on is apologies. So to receive apologies for the CJC subcommittee, and that mine is incorrect, but we've had no other, well, we have had 2 other apologies that need to go on there, which is Councillor Angela Davis and Councillor David Selby.
And sorry, I missed it. Did Councillor Clive Davis? I know he's sent his apologies as well.
Yes, he has.
Okay, so the next one is declarations of interest. Has anybody got any declarations of interest? No. The minutes of the last meeting, and yes, you're right, Anne, they're sitting here in front of me now. Has anybody got anything on here for accuracy? Are we happy that the minutes are accurate? Is that silence a yes?
I think Keith has just acknowledged.
Thumbs up, happy, yes.
Okay, thanks very much. And can I have it's a long day. Proposer and seconder. I wanted to put promoter. A proposer and seconder.
Arlene and myself, I think.
Thank you. And
whichever
a seconder.
way you want to take us. Yeah. Well, I'll second if Arlene wants to.
Right.
Yeah, whichever way.
That's fine.
Okay, then. So that's proposed by Alan and seconded by Keith. Okay. Is there anything in those minutes that we need that's not for discussion here that we need to raise? Nope. Okay, then. If we go back to the agenda. So it's a regional transport plan update.
Yes, thank you, Councillor. If I could just thank everybody for joining us this evening, and we can take you through my short report to say that it's the Regional Transport Plan Subcommittee, and obviously we're undertaking work on behalf of the CJC. Since our last committee on the 23rd of October, we've been actively engaging and procuring and the appointment of our delivery partner, who I'd obviously like to welcome with us this afternoon from WSP. Reese and Gemma have joined us. So as part of our joint working, we've been, one of our first tasks was to update the implementation plan, and we've made that available to you at Appendix 1. Happy to take any questions regarding Appendix 1.
Any questions?
Basically, we've been able to update it in line with the delivery plan programme, which is provided to you as Appendix 2. Whilst we've had to realign some of the active key dates which Welsh Government had set out to us, obviously that's impossible because of the delay in being able to appoint a delivery partner. But the delivery plan programme takes us to our overall objective, which is completion of our plan by the 31st of March. And you'll see that we're cramming a lot into a very short space of time. So your cooperation on the number of meetings required to get us there is would be appreciated. So we come down to providing you a copy of the engagement plan, Appendix 3. And I don't know if anybody has any questions on the engagement plan element. And we intend, WSP are going to take us through a presentation for Appendix 4.
Hello, could I just check everyone can hear me, because I've had technological problems.
We can hear you.
Perfect.
Yes,
I
thank
can't
you.
see it. I can't see anybody, just to let you know. So I'm a bit in the dark, but hopefully it'll be okay.
Is this
Okay,
where we
thank you,
step
Jen.
in, Anne? Is this
Yeah,
where we
yes,
bring
please.
our presentation
Yes,
up?
so yes, I'm going to leave it to you to take us through. Thank you,
I'm
Reece.
just going to share my screen. If you guys could give me a thumbs up or a nod when you can see what looks like a presentation from us.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
All good? Brilliant. Over to you, Jeb.
Okay. Thank you, Anne, and good afternoon, everybody. So in this presentation, we'll just give a bit of background to the Regional Transport Plan, and then you run you through the case for change. Reece, you in charge of the...
Yeah, I'm on it.
So in terms of introductions, my name is Gemma Thomas. I'm here with my colleague Reece Richards today, and we are going to be involved in all the stages of developing the Regional Transport Plan. So if I start with a short background to the Regional Transport Plan, I'm conscious that some of you may have seen some of this information before, so I'll try and focus in on the key points. So this first slide shows that the Regional Transport Plan is not a single document, but there are a number of elements that need to feed into it and need to be produced. So the first is the case for change, which we'll hear about today, and that's about setting out the current issues and the future trends for transport in the region. And from the case for change, the RTP objectives will be developed, which will set out what the RTP wants to achieve. There's the engagement plan that Anna's mentioned, and that sets out all our plans for engagement in developing the RTP. There's the Regional Transport Plan itself, which includes the policies and the high-level interventions for transport in the region, and the Regional Transport Delivery Plan, which is a prioritised list of the projects that will be delivered. The next one, the Integrated Wellbeing Appraisal, assesses the impact of the RTP on a range of wellbeing criteria, and a strategic environmental assessment and HRA screening will be undertaken to feed into that. And finally, we have the Monitoring and Evaluation Plan, which sets out how progress on the RTP will be measured and monitored. And all of these are in line with the Welsh Government's Regional Transport Plan guidance. So this slide provides a snapshot of some of the key points of the guidance. If I just highlight some of the blue bubbles, the RTPs will need to have a focus on achieving modal shift. They'll need to include innovative approaches and technology, both in developing and implementing the RTPs. They should include disincentives for car use, as well as incentives for more sustainable travel. The links between RTPs and the Wales Transport Strategy is emphasised throughout the guidance. And as the slide says, RTPs will set the policies as well as the actions for implementing the Wales Transport Strategy at the regional level. The guidance includes the date of the 29th of March 2025 as the date for the submission of the final RTPs to the Welsh Government, and this is the date we work into in our programme. Thank you. This next slide highlights the links between the regional transport plans and the strategic policy documents produced at the national level. And the guidance highlights the need for RTPs to align with each of these. It also shows the links between the regional transport plans and the strategic development plans, which is shown there on the left. So as the links between the regional transport plan and the Wales Transport Strategy are really important, I thought it was worth highlighting some of its key points. So the Wales Transport Strategy has 4 long-term ambitions, which are shown there at the bottom of the slide. And these are supported by 3 short-term priorities shown above them. And the RTP will need to include policies and actions to deliver on each of these. The guidance stressed the need for RTPs to be in line with the sustainable transport hierarchy, which is shown there on the right, which prioritises sustainable modes of transport over private vehicles. Hang on, Reece, hang on.
Sorry.
I have mentioned the need for RTPs to have a focus on modal shift, and the Wales Transport Strategy includes a target in relation to this, which is shown there at the top right.
Good to go.
Yeah, fine. And this slide then just shows the importance for RTPs to follow the 5 ways of working as set out in the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act. And the integrated wellbeing appraisal that I mentioned earlier will need to set out how the RTP has been delivered in and developed in line with each of these. This slide shows a summary of the programme, the delivery programme we're working to. So I won't go through this in any detail, but just to highlight the CJC approval points are shown there in green, and the blue is where documents are issued to the Welsh Government for review and approval. So on to the case for change itself. This slide shows the process that we've been going through to develop the case for change. We've been through a process of data gathering. So we've used strategic plans such as the Wales Transport Strategy and its monitoring measures. We've used regional plans such as the wellbeing assessments for Powys and Ceredigion. We've had data supplied by Transport for Wales that we've been able to use, and we've also held 2 stakeholder engagement workshops. So through this, we've identified the problems, issues and barriers for transport in the region, along with opportunities and interdependencies. And the result of the case for change document that sets out why something needs to be done in the region. And I'll now hand over to Rhys, who will talk through some of the themes within the case for change.
Thanks, Jem. So yeah, essentially the case for change document that we've produced is a sort of summary of the challenges that Mid Wales face from a transport perspective, and this slide here is essentially those key themes and those key significant challenges, if you like. So one of the most prominent being rurality of the Mid Wales region and the challenges sort of associated with that. So unlike most regions in Wales, the key towns and settlements in certainly what we found is it are a lot more dispersed than in other regions in Wales, and as a result, Mid Wales residents have to travel significant distances to reach those key centres and settlements. So, for example, if to access healthcare, if you're in Ceredigion, you may need to go to the next county in Carmarthenshire or even to Swansea. And sometimes, in some cases, it may include, if you're in Powys, going cross-border to England to access those healthcare facilities. And another key area highlighted in the case for change is economic connectivity. So the report recognises sort of the importance of economic connectivity and how Mid Wales has a strong cross-border connections to the north, to the east, and to the south. Mid Wales in the report is also recognised as sort of supporting the growth of other regions as well due to the scale of it. Sorry, did anyone say something or have a hand up or no?
No, sorry, it's my dog.
Does he or she have a question?
She's always questioning me. Yes,
Yeah, okay.
She's my sister's dog, and somebody's just walked in the room. So
that's okay. Don't worry, no worries. And car dependency also features quite heavily in the case for change as well. So this here is data that we've taken from Census 2021. And essentially what it shows is that there's a higher proportion of households in both Powys and Ceredigion who own 3 or more private vehicles than in Wales as a whole. And if you take into account this output here, which is also from the census data 2021, is that there is a lower proportion of households in Ceredigion and Powys that own no vehicles compared to Wales as a whole. So I think when you take into account these 2 outputs and these 2 graphs, if you like, it certainly points towards or suggests deep rurality and a need for private vehicle use, and also perhaps poor public transport availability. So back to these sort of key issues that we've sort of highlighted in the case for change. Public transport features quite heavily as well. So this is an updated output that we've received from TFW from the first case for change draft document that we submitted. So the previous output sort of cut off, I think it was Cardigan. So we've had this output altered basically, and what this output shows is the volume of people travelling via public transport in Mid Wales. So in principle, the thicker the red line, the more people travelling via public transport. So if you look closely, we can assume that this thicker red line in the region follows the Cambrian railway line. And these thinner red lines we can assume are the bus network. So this is an output which shows those volumes of people travelling in public transport in the AM peak period, 8 to 9. And we've also received...
Rhys, before you go to the next slide, I think Councillor Henson has a question.
Sorry, I can't see any hands.
Oh, sorry, diolch, Rhys.
Yeah, dim problem.
Just checking if translation facilities are working. Just i wirio fi bod yr gyfieithu'n gweithio. O ran yr data hyn, Rhys, pryd ma fe, beth yw fath o'r amseriad o ran hyn, achos wrth gwrs mae pethau wedi symud mlaen tipyn bach, yn ymwedig o ran yr amserlen, a fi'n deall, dyw hyn ddim yn falle'n dangos yr amserlen, ond fel ni'n gwybod mae'r llinell trwy Galon Cymru wedi cael ei effeithio, mae'r T5 a pethau ac yn y blaen amserlen, ond mae hyn yn dangos wrth gwrs y llwybrau, ond o ran pryd oedd y dyddiad.
So, y dyddiad, os modd i fi siarad Cymraeg yn ôl i ti?
Os,
Yeah,
please.
so by niwe really. So os na i wneud hwn bach yn fwy i ti, y beis yw 2019.
Okay, diolch.
Hwna ateb y cwestiwn?
Odi mewn ffordd, mae'n dangos bod TFW lle'n maent nhw'n bell tu ôl, maen nhw'n gweithio.
A dwi'n gwerthfawrogi bod hwn yn pre-Covid. Ond dwi'n meddwl fel rheol, dwi'n meddwl yn fy marn i mae'n dangos good state, mae'n paintio'r picture sort of thing. Can I move on?
Sorry, I was going to say, what I can say, Rhys, though, it does also show you just how heavily transport is used further south.
Yeah, no, I wanted to sort of, draw attention to that. You can see that the thicker red lines in the south are not as few and far between as they are in Mid Wales. So, apologies, I can't see any hands. So if anyone's got any questions, just jump in.
No, I think the sylw, therein lies the problem.
Yeah. It is quite a telling output, isn't it?
Yeah, I was actually going to wait till the end of your presentation, Rhys, to take any questions, but if you're happy to take them in the meantime, I'll keep an eye on the hands. Yeah,
no, whoever's boss today, if that's all right with them, I don't mind fielding questions on these.
Okay.
Alan
has got a question.
Well, it's not a question really. I mean, the thing that leaps off the page at me is it does somewhat seem to make the case for rail, doesn't it?
I mean, certainly, what are everybody else's thoughts on that? Because it's glaringly obvious that this is a quite a well-used railway line, quite a well-used link.
I think it's an observation we might want to hold on to. I'd like to investigate that a little bit further. Is that because the train will, well, most of the time the train will go anyway? Does it mean that there are more people using it, or does it mean that it's just moving backwards and forwards more? That's what this doesn't tell us. So
it may have been me explaining this incorrectly, but it's the volume of people. Right. So if you see in this top right corner up here, it's volume.
I can't. Yeah, you can't see.
Persons. Yeah, that's my fault. So this is what we're looking at in terms of the number of people that are being transported via public transport, and I think that thicker red line, I think we can all agree, is probably the Cambrian line, the railway line.
Okay, thanks, Rhys.
Yeah, shall I move on? I mean,
no, we've got another question now, Rodri.
Yeah, no, I was just going to come in on the point that Arlene made there, and I was wondering
or does it indicate a lack of a viable alternative?
Mm.
You know, how many of those people are going across Wales and then south to Cardiff and Swansea, you know, on the train? Or is it, you know, is it because the train is the only option for some? That's why they're using the train, and you know, we should still be focusing on the bus as well.
Yeah.
Just putting it out there.
Yeah, no, quite right. Yeah.
I suppose I'm a little bit surprised that the main Tras Cymru routes, bus routes, aren't a little bit thicker. I'm a user of them very regularly. I'm just a bit, as well as the rail a bit, but I more frequently use the Tras Cymru and certain times of the morning. Well, the times in 8 till 9. They're very well used in my experience, but obviously, not quite as well used as I might think, or compared to rail.
Yeah, and I think just picking up on that point, Alan, if we were to remove the rail from the map, in terms of the thickness of the lines that remain, is there a higher percentage of the rural population using public transport compared to the, you got higher population numbers, haven't you, in South Wales? The lines don't look that much thicker in terms of the bus. So again, are we making more use of bus in Mid Wales than they are in South Wales?
I imagine that the frequency of service and the extent of the service massively dictates that, doesn't it?
Yeah. Sean has got his hand up, Reese.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, no, it's just to point out really that whilst the Cambrian line shows quite heavy in terms of rail, the Heart of Wales line doesn't. And obviously there's a difference in frequency in the Cambrian line compared to the Heart of Wales line. So is there an interdependency on frequency in terms of what's available and what numbers you get? So it's not necessarily just rail is better than bus, is it really, in terms of that? Because clearly the Heart of Wales line isn't much thicker than the bus lines.
It's because we're talking about volume of people. Exactly.
Yeah, and the Heart of Wales line is, borderline tourist railway line, really, isn't it? Or much of it is, you could say. And I suppose the other thing is the Cambrian coastline. I suppose you could, that's sort of somewhere between the two, I guess.
Anne has put something in the chat as well, which I think is worth remembering, is that buses have a seat capacity, whereas the train will actually will carry more people. The capacity is greater for the train.
Yeah.
I don't know, again, that might impact on this as well.
Yeah.
Shall I move on?
More questions. Yeah, if we move on then, please.
So after all that, this is the PM peak period, and it shows broadly the same. If anybody has any questions about that. Another area that we had a look at in the case for change was active travel. And one of the highlights from the report was that Mid Wales has a significantly lower proportion of people in the region with walking access to a bus stop or a railway station compared to Wales as a whole. And actually, a lot of the active travel sort of walking and cycling network is sort of largely focused around the sort of larger settlements, which makes it increasingly hard to achieve that sort of active travel network density connectivity. And another one of our sort of key areas that kept popping up in the report was access to services, and actually you can look at all these things as symptoms of rurality and the challenges faced. So this output here is from the Welsh Index of Multiple Deprivation, and what it shows is, or what it's measuring rather, is the access of lower super output areas to key services such as GPs, post offices, food stores. And I'll zoom in for you because I appreciate that you probably can't see, but what this is showing is that Mid Wales falls into that sort of dark blue area where there's extremely poor access to these key facilities, and we have a second output also produced by TFW, which sort of supports this, and it's essentially what this shows is the access that people in Mid Wales have to key towns and key centres via public transport. So I won't make the same mistake as I made previously. I'll zoom in for you so you can all see. So essentially what you're looking at here is the yellow to red areas are areas where if they were to jump on a bus or a train, it would take them between 30 minutes and 60 minutes to get to the nearest sort of larger urban area. And the sort of blue to green colours are where it takes between 0 and 30 minutes to reach those same areas. I certainly know that when I first looked at this, there's a lot more yellow to red going on than there is blue to green, I guess. So I don't know if anybody has any questions on this output.
Rodri's put his hand up, Rhys.
Yes, Rodri?
Yeah, not a question, but an observation.
Yeah.
I think it'd be interesting to compare that with a map of southwest and southeast Wales to see
agree.
see the timings there.
I agree.
Any other questions on this map? I think it highlights what we already know, Rhys, but it provides us with the evidence that we require.
Yeah. I don't know if you feel the same, but it sort of struck me as there being quite a lot of red and yellow there. Does anyone else have any questions? I can't really see, obviously. Okay. I'll move on then.
I think as we start absorbing this, I think we'll probably start having more questions, but
yeah, no, certainly.
Yeah.
I'll pass back to Gemma now.
Thanks, Rhys. So the next theme considered is tourism. The Case for Change highlights the importance of tourism to the region, but also the importance of good connectivity and accessibility for visitors in order to increase the potential growth of tourism. Unsurprisingly, many visitors rely on car travel to get around due to limited sustainable travel options. The Case for Change also highlights the seasonality of tourism, which puts seasonal pressures on the transport system. Comments about seasonality were raised during the stakeholder workshops and the impact this can have on the provision of transport infrastructure. So an example raised was the provision of electric vehicle charging. So there could be increased demand for charging points during the summer months as a result of an increase in visitors, but also that visitors may need charging points in different locations to those living in the area. The next one, carbon emissions. The Case for Change then considers challenges in relation to reducing carbon emissions. It highlights that the transport sector is the third largest emitter of greenhouse gases, with car use being responsible for the majority of greenhouse gas emissions in Wales from the transport sector. So a modal shift and a reduction in car use is going to be really crucial in working towards Wales's net zero targets. And the role of low emissions vehicles in working towards net zero is also highlighted, and the importance of developing a network of charging points to increase the uptake of electric vehicles.
John has got a question, Gemma.
Okay.
Hi, Gemma.
Hiya.
Perhaps you haven't got the info, but how does our carbon emission per car in Mid Wales change or differ from that in South East Wales, where we know we've got a higher level of car ownership, but there's a much wider spread of population? Does that factor into this at all, or is it a factor in terms of air quality, etc.?
We haven't sort of got data on that sort of differences between regions. I'm not sure, to be honest, if it is sort of available. I think across the board, wherever you are in Wales, car use is going to be up there with the sort of being one of the bigger emitters. And across Wales, all the RTPs are going to need to have policies and projects to reduce car use. But yeah, I'm not sure of the kind of regional differences, to be honest.
Okay, thanks.
Can I quickly pop into that one as well, because I think that's a good question, because we touched on it with tourism. It's seasonal, so we get more cars, we get more bikes. We also have heavy agricultural machinery as well, so that doesn't really impact on the regional transport plan, but it does impact on carbon emissions. So I think that that we do need to do a bit of work on that, because we don't have access to the active travel in quite the same way that others do. And air quality is an interesting one, because air quality may come, or there could be some impact on air quality, but it's not necessarily coming from our cars. It might be coming from elsewhere, if you see what I mean, because air quality is one of those funny things that moves around. So I don't know whether how much work you've done on this, Gemma, on how much work there, but I think this is a complicated issue that perhaps we need to be a lot clearer on. Keith, you've got your hand up.
Diolch, wel, just y link fyna mewn I pwyntiau gwefru, wrth gwrs yw capacity y grid hefyd. A fi'n gwybod falle chi'n meddwl bod ni ddim wedi gwneud y trwyddiaeth, ond y gwirionedd yw, wrth gwrs bod achos os i ni moyn pwyntiau gwefru cyflym, mae angen i ni gael y capacity y grid, achos sylw ffil fyna o ran lleoliadau pwyntiau gwefru, wrth gwrs mae i ni ffodus bod y cyngor wedi gallu cael grantiau mwyn rhoi rhai mwy mewn yn yn pentrefi fwy o faint hefyd. So mae'r angen yna, i ni'n gwybod bod yr angen yna, a y ffordd bod yn cael ei wneud, wrth gwrs mae yna fwy o cydweithio nawr gyda cyngorau bro ac yn y blaen. So falle bod eisiau rhyw fath o sylw am hynna hefyd, i sicrhau bod hwnna'n gallu bwydo nôl mewn trwy'r leaps wedyn, hefyd wrth gwrs o ran y pwyntiau gwefru. Local area energy plans, sorry. Leap of faith.
Yeah, I think we could also add to that as well, because I'd like to see part of the regional transport plan, I think it's in there somewhere, is electric car clubs. They need to be part of our plan as well. So the car shouldn't be missed off of the regional transport plan. It plays a part. But if we can't have the right charging, we're going to miss out on something which I think has been by Welsh Government as important to us, which is those electric car clubs. Okay, Gemma.
Okay. So on to the next one, resilience. The Case for Change highlights the importance of a transport system that's resilient to the future impacts of climate change. So impacts of more frequent flooding and extreme weather events. Issues linked to this were raised again during the stakeholder workshops in terms of the disruption these cause to the transport system due to, for example, cancellation of services or road diversions. And then on to the final theme considered, which is the safety of the road network and the impact that road safety incidents have not just on local communities, but on the wider transport network in terms of road closures and journey delays, which also have a knock-on impact to the wider economy.
Just quickly on that one as well, Gemma, we've just taken a report to Ken Skates on road safety in Powys. We're calling it the road safety crisis in Powys, and we're meeting with him on the 18th of July. And I think this is a really, really important issue, and especially for tourism as well. It does impact, it does give us a case for change as well, because per capita, Powys have got the most dangerous roads in the UK. So it is a really, really important point to us. So I'd just like to say thank you for putting that on this as well for the Case of Change.
Okay. So just to continue on road safety, was there another question?
Yeah. Sorry, wedi mynd bach mewn ar, o'n i jyst yn mynd i ddysgwyl yr part na I orffen, o'n i yn mynd i ddyn nhw'n mewn am beth twristiaeth, achos wrth gwrs mae TFW yn ei doethineb wedi lleihau amserlen un o'r brif llwybrau ar draws Ceredigion ar yn y T5 ar hyn o bryd. Yn tynnu siwrniau yn ôl o ardaloedd fel Cei a Aberystwyth yn ystod y dydd. So, fi'n credu bod hwnna'n beth bwysig arall i bwydo nôl mewn. Mae disgwyliadau pobl yn cwympo ar yr awdurdodau lleol, fel Ceredigion a Powys, ond wrth gwrs, Trefnidiaeth Cymru sydd yn gwneud y penderfyniad, felly mae yna disconnect ar hyn o bryd, wrth gwrs. Mae'n sownd o fel sy'n yn hangry ma, ond dim hangry we, just pwyntiau sydd yn... Mae'n codi grychu na ddyn. Yeah.
Thank you, Keith.
Thank you. So the actual and perceived safety of the highway network will also influence how people choose to travel. So, for example, in rural areas, narrow roads, a lack of footways may be a limiting factor in the numbers that are choosing to walk and cycle. Another issue linked to safety is the need for a well-maintained highway network. So this again was raised during the stakeholder workshops. And the ongoing maintenance of the highway network was seen as important to many of the other issues considered in the case for change. So in terms of accessibility to services and a high quality public transport system. So as the slide says, if Reece just scrolls down a little bit, the issues identified in the case for change will now inform the development of the RTP vision and objectives, which is the next sort of piece of work. And that's the end of our presentation, but we'd welcome any more questions or comments.
Thank you. Alan wants to come in. Thank you, Gemma. Thank you, Reece.
Thank you.
You're on mute, Alan.
Sorry. Thanks very much. Very much behind all that. I just wonder, where's the appropriate place to talk about public perception and the need to take the public with us? Because you only need to read the latest Cambria News editorial about a transport-related decision taken by Ceredigion Council this week to see there's a big problem there. We've taken a decision along the lines of what's just been presented, and we're getting absolutely pasted. It's somewhere there needs to be a public engagement consideration, and I recognise that some of that is just practical issues. There are people out there who are with us ideologically, but in practical terms, they can't live their lives if they go down the transport hierarchy. So that's very difficult. But I just wonder, is there room anywhere in the strategy for public engagement and increasing, getting the public to come along the journey with us?
Yeah, I agree with you, Alan. And it was a question I was going to ask earlier on one of the slides. You said you've already been out to 2 groups of stakeholders. I just wondered who they were.
Can I just go back to if that's okay, the previous point in terms of public engagement is sort of related. The RTP is a requirement that the RTP will need to include behaviour change projects. So it's almost it's not quite the same thing, but I think an element of those projects where you're, encouraging people to get on board with what you're trying to do, I think will form part of those projects that will feed into the strategy. In terms of the stakeholders, so we've had these 2 stakeholder workshops, we've had a variety of stakeholders. We've had the Welsh Government, Transport for Wales, but we've also had representatives from Growing Mid Wales. Reece, jump in if you're.
Yeah,
you've got a better summary
Network
of
Rail as well, haven't we? Yeah. We've had good representation.
The RTP guidance is kind of clear on when to go to public consultation, and it sort of specifies when to do that. So we'll be doing that when the RTP is drafted. But that's sort of in line with what the guidance is telling us to do, if you see what I mean.
Okay. I'm still with Alan on this one, and I've got Anne and got Keith to come in, but consultation is different to engagement. And I think that's what Alan is saying, really. We need to engage with our communities rather than come back to them at a later date and say, this is all the work that we've done. We've done all this stuff. We're coming out to consult with you on this. This is what we're going to do. That's not engagement. So I wondered if we could think a little bit more about that. But I'll bring Anne and I'll bring Keith in now.
Thank you, Chair. Just to say that as part of the initial engagement was to engage with you as a committee and officers in order to scope out our case for change. It's about stating what we have now, and you've been part of that process. I take your note on the difference between engagement and consultation, and indeed the communication plan sets out how that's going to be taken forward.
Thank you. Keith?
Diolch, Jackie. Wel, dyn nôl I teithio llesol o'n i'n mynd I wneud, o ran y ffordd mae Trinidaeth Cymru, falle, ddim yn gweithio gyda ni fel awdurdod y lleol. Mae yna dyfarniad grant nhw I fod am un o teithiau ni yn gogledd y sir, ble oedd y cynlluniau yn arbennig o dda o cysylltu ddwy ardal eitha dyncherus o ran teithio llesol, a ble o'n wedi rhoi arian I prynu tir ac yn y blaen, ond nawr wedi lleihau yr swm y grant yn eithafol o Israel. Dwi ddim yn meddwl bod y gwaith ffili cymeryd lle, ond wrth gwrs i'r cyhoedd, bydd yn edrych eto fel, mae'r Council ffili wneud y byd achos hyn y llall. Mae fe'n siomedig o nadw, a fi'n gwybod byddwn ni yn sgrifennu at y gweinidog am hynny. So, Rodri, wyt ti ddim moyn dod mewn ar y pwynt na hefyd?
Na, fi'n credu ni'n datblygu cynlluniau yn unol gyda'r gofyniadau maen nhw'n rhoi arno ni, a wedyn fel sef maen nhw'n trio rhoi spin I hunain. So, mae fe'n bwynt o'n i'n mynd I wneud yn fwy gyffredinol. A na I newid y Saesneg nawr, achos gyda ei weid yn Saesneg. You know, when we met with TFW and Welsh Government around this, and it particularly stuck in my mind that it was mentioned by somebody from TFW that the purpose of the RTP was to deliver the Wales Transport Strategy. I thought it was to deliver the needs of the people of Mid Wales.
Yeah.
You know, having you know, acknowledging the Wales Transport Strategy. It's not about, you know, it's coming back to this engagement and consultation. It's not about delivering the Welsh Government's vision on Mid Wales. It's about tailoring what we deliver to try and meet the aspirations of the Wales Transport Strategy, but for the people of Mid Wales, isn't it?
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think we really do have to hang on to that, and that's got to be a really important part of this whole process. Is that, you know, it is for our local regional area. It isn't an add-on to the Wales Transport Plan, whatever they want to do, because we will lose out if that happens. So I do think that's really important. And Ken Skate said he was going to listen to us, didn't he, Keith? He's going to meet with us on a regular basis. He says he understands that, and he's going to listen to what we've got to say. I'll come to you, Alan, and then I'd like to, if we possibly can, start pulling this conversation together where we want to go with the next steps. Alan?
Yeah, and you know, sort of further to what Rodri said, really, it's not our strategy versus the Welsh Government strategy. You know, one can support the Welsh Government strategy, but still say, look, actually, you're missing an awful lot about Central Wales. So it's about putting our slant onto the Welsh Government strategy and maybe pulling it a bit to or maybe quite a lot towards understanding rural Wales. I think, you know, we are actually essential. Our input is actually essential to a genuine Welsh Government strategy, because we all know how a Welsh strategy could end up. It could end up just.
Oh, it's frozen. Just give him a couple more seconds, just in case it comes back. No, if it comes back, I'll ask him to finish his conversation or finish his point there. just to bring you back to the agenda, we're asked to note the progress so far. We've had quite a lot of information coming back to you, Rhys and Gemma. I just wondered if you could capture all of that, so that presumably we will have minutes again for this. I'm apologise for not saying we had minutes from this subcommittee before. I thought it was I was going back to the working party rather than the subcommittee. But do we feel that that Keith, I know Alan's not here with us, but Keith, do you feel that we've been able to say all that we want to say at this stage?
As far as I'm aware, Alan's popped out now, he's probably going to sign back in.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's we have major concerns, don't we, Jackie? Mae Dani concern mawr achos na pam ni mae'n cwrdd â Ken Skates i trosglwyddo'r gwybodaeth hyn iddo fe. Achos mae'n heriol iawn ar hyn o bryd yn awdurdod y lleol, a mae fe wedi gweud bod yn mynd i'w rondo. Ond mae un peth yw gwrando a peth arall yw gweithredu wedyn wrth gwrs, felly mae rhaid i ni gwasgu a sicrhau bod yr gwybodaeth berthnasol yn cael ei droslwyddo draw.
And I think Alan is right as well. We want to make sure that this is a good conversation that we're having with Welsh Government. We're not in competition. We just want a fair crack of the whip. And I don't think we've had that previously. And, it isn't a competition. It doesn't matter what people have done before. It's what we do now and where it takes us in the future. So I think we've taken on all your points. I think the number of points that you put forward to us are ones that we're all content with. I think some of them could do with a bit of strengthening around what you're going to do. Before I finish off then, John, you want to come back?
Thanks, Councillor Jackie. Yeah, and I'm not sure how we word this into this document, just reflecting on yourselves and Councillor Keith's engagement with the Minister. One thing I find myself doing time and time again, and it's getting a little bit tiresome, almost deliberate, is I'm reading lots of stuff coming out of Transport for Wales where they've engaged with the bus industry about how they plan to take on franchising, for example. It is very noticeable that local authorities, CJCs, are not included in that conversation. And I don't know how you put that into this document, or even if it's relevant at this in this document, but perhaps to remind the Minister that this function here as a CJC is the pathway to delivering his transport strategy. So yeah. It's a bit of an odd point, sorry, but I just thought we just needed to bring it up somehow. Yeah,
I think we need to capture that. Rodri?
Yeah, I think just expanding on John's point there, and to give a particular example in Ceredigion, Councillor Keith Henson mentioned the reduction of services on the T5 earlier. We were copied into a press release, whatever it was, from TFW around it, saying that they agreed the reductions with local authorities and the bus operators. We certainly hadn't agreed to it, but by the time we went back to ask them to correct it, it was too late. It had been published. So we seem to be around the table sometimes and having conversations with them, but I'm not sure we're being listened to or our views are being taken on board. But the image that's being portrayed to the public is that we're all in this together. We've all agreed. We've all come to this decision, when the reality is far from that.
Okay, I think that needs to be noted. I bring you in, Keith, and then Nicholas put something in the chat, which I'd just like to get some thoughts on as well. And Anne is waiting too.
Yeah, dim ond o mewn ar un pwynt ar Rodri fyna, o ran amser gath cynghorydd Jackie a fyny cyfarfod gyda Lee Robinson, y diwrnod cyn o'n nhw'n cyhoeddi newid yr amserlen i llinell canolbarth Cymru, ac yr un o Machlan am y gogledd gorllewin. Yeah, we've consulted with you. Wel, na, oedd dim ymgysylltu wedi bod, oedd dim... A fanna mae'r siom, di fe, achos mae dyn ni tipyn... Ni sydd yn cynrychioli'r trigolion yr ardal, a fi'n credu bod ni'n bwysig bod nhw'n deall hefyd y sgiliau a proffesiynol sydd gyda'r swyddogion o fewn y ddwy ardal. Maen nhw'n deall beth sydd yn digwydd. Mae hynna'n siomedig o ran Trynydd y Cymru. Fi'n gobeithio bydd y perthynas na'n gwella gyda'r amser a gyda gyda Ken Skates mewn lle hefyd wedyn, wrth gwrs.
Thank you very much, Keith. Anne, and then I'm not going to take any more questions after this. I'm just going to go to what Nicholas said in the chat.
Thank you, Chair. Actually, just to pick up on what Nicholas has said, that whilst my report doesn't say recommendation, it does say on page 6 a decision is sought. So there are 2 recommendations within that. One is to note the content of the report and the task undertaken to deliver the regional transport plan. And the second is to agree this case for change and engagement plan so that I'm able to complete process to Welsh Government, and as part of the discussions today to note that they will be taken forward into the formation of the regional transport plan.
Yeah, I think that was my understanding as well, and which is why I wondered whether you could just put into the report my comments about climate and nature and the climate and nature emergency. I don't know whether I haven't got it in front of me, I'm afraid, but I just wanted it to, under the impacts, just to note that this will have an impact on the future of our climate and nature. And it is an important part of the report. If you could bring some words together around that, I'd be happy. But I did send you some brief words. You did say that it would be brought out in the report that what we've had so far. The only thing I could see in there was about carbon emissions. So I'd still quite like that to go into the report if that's possible, so that it's clear that that's a commitment that we're making, and it's clear as we go forward on the report. So with those 2 provisos that Anne has outlined, which is what I was under the impression was we were basically noting this, and we were accepting that we go to the next stage. So is everybody happy with that? Yep, hands up. Oh, you're back with us, Alan. I'm sorry, we missed half of what you're saying. I don't know whether you wanted to add anything to what you were saying. We've got no sound for you now either, so you're not muted, but we've not got any sound now. I can sort of see what you're saying, but okay. We'll catch up with that. If it's really important, I'm sure we can and see that through any messages that you want to send. So if we're all content with recommendations or noting that where we are with this report and we want to move on to the next stage, our next meeting, I haven't got that in front of me now, they're all agendaed, they're all in the timetable now, but if you could just take back, Rhys and Gemma, just your considerations on what we actually mean by engagement and what we mean by consultation, and where that fits into this report and into the timetabling as well. I think that's from Keith and Alan and myself. I think that's an important issue for us.
Okay, thank you. Yes, we'll have a think.
Okay, thank you. Nicola.
Sorry, Chair. Just to make sure that we're absolutely clear on this, can we please have just from the councillors, have a proposer and a seconder, please? Okay. Just for the record. Thank you.
Proposer and seconder. Thank you. So we've got the proposer and seconder, and yes, we're happy to go forward with this report with the information that we've given you. Anne.
Yes, Chair, just to confirm that the next meeting is in July.
Yes. Okay, and we need to be core for that one as well. That would be a decision-making meeting as well, won't it? Yeah. Okay, we'll make sure we've got everybody here. We'll feed back as well, because I know I've got John, Sean and Matt are on the call here. We will meet up and discuss this, and we will share with our other 2 councillors so that they feel engaged in this. I don't think they feel very engaged at the moment, so we'll make sure that changes, because I think their views are really important, because they've got an economic view and a scrutiny view as well, so we can bring those elements into the next meeting. So unless there's anything else that anybody wants to say. No, I draw this meeting to a close then, and thank you everybody. Thank you for coming on at 5 o'clock in the evening as well. So it's a stretch to the rest of the end of the day really, but thank you very much, and see you all soon. Thanks then.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.